Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we have a special review. This is review number 900, so as I always do with these milestone reviews, I want to give a huge thank you to you guys, the viewers, for all your support over the last 3.5 years or so that I've been doing these reviews. It's always fun responding to your comments and chatting to you guys through the Facebook page and things, so your support of the channel is hugely appreciated and I want you guys to know that. So for this review, as a special review, I wasn't quite sure what to do, but then when I was finishing up in Japan over the summer, I had quite an interesting idea. So for this one, we are going to return to Japan, hence why I'm wearing red and white for the Japanese flag colours, but we're going to have a look at a beer from Japan's first microbrewery. So we're heading to Niigata Prefecture today and we're going to visit Echigo Beer. This one is their red ale and it comes in at 5.5%. This beer was actually recommended to me by my friend Scott Bowersock, who lives in Hawaii but he has a Japanese wife, Yuko, and they run a site together. They have Beer Japan, Beer Hawaii, and they also do food recipes from both countries as well, or both places, I guess I should say. Hawaii is a state rather than a country, but they've got a really nice website there. Make sure you check it out in the description below, and of course thank you to Scott for the recommendation. A couple of other shout outs as well, since it's a Japanese beer review, of course to my girlfriend Michiko in Osaka, my friend Lee who's there as well, and a special shout out to Koji at liquor store Asahiya in Taishibashi Maichi. Thanks to him and to Michiko, you will be seeing some more Japanese beer reviews probably sometime in January, and of course if you're particularly interested in Japanese beer, you can check out my friends Casey and Eric's channel, Sotogami Akihabeera. They have some Japanese beer reviews both in English and in Japanese. They're really nice videos actually, so make sure you check out the link to their channel in the video description below. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my future reviews that hopefully I can do from Echigo Beer. This is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers actually. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do subscribe to the channel. The whole channel uses a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city or state, whatever you're interested in. There's a playlist of the different beers I've done from Japan as well. I've also done some sake reviews that you can check out, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries you guys would like to see me review, especially those of you watching in Japan, because it's always interesting to hear from you guys and I hope you enjoy this review. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Echigo Beer. So Echigo Beer, as I mentioned to you, were the first microbrewery to open in Japan after liberalisation. The official launch date of the brewery is February 16th, 1995, although they received their brewing licence on December 9th the year before. So the brewery is actually attached to Urahara Shuzo, which was founded back in 1862 on the shores of Lake Biwa, and it's known today for its kind of huge wooden press and some really quite interesting traditional sake brewing methods. I really hope that I can do a review of one of their sakes one time actually, because you know I really fell in love with sake when I was in Japan. But the brewery are based in Nishikambara in Niigata Prefecture, which is a little bit to the south of Niigata City. It looks as if it might be an hour or two's drive actually. But the original owner of the company was Uehara Seichiro, who actually lived in Europe for a long time, and he thought it was really very strange that Japan had no real choice of different beer styles. So he hired Bawa Demuyaku as the first brewmaster, and he was from Ghana but had actually studied at Hiroshima Agricultural College for a period of time, and he also worked for the Guinness Brewery as well. But Bawa stayed with the brewery for 3 years and was then replaced by Bob Malone, who went to work for Flying Dog in America, and then Marcus Luczynski, who I'm not sure if he's still with them actually. He might have gone on somewhere else, but in the 10 years since, they really left their mark on the brewery, and this is why Echigo Beer are now doing quite well. But after starting up, they won various awards internationally, and they had to move to a new brewery in 1999, really just to keep up with the demand for their beer. But then they started canning their beers in 2005, and the main idea behind this was that in Japan there's a lot of convenience stores, so they did want to sell their beers in convenience stores in the local area. Of course, there's no way they could meet the demand nationwide for convenience stores, but the idea as well was that you could drink these beers any time, and they wanted to get people drinking beer that was different from the likes of Sapporo, Asahi and Kirin and all of these sort of things. So it's quite a cool idea, but ironically their export beers are all in bottle because the American market really demands that they are in bottle. Restaurants just seem to prefer that apparently. But the current president of the brewery is Koda Hirofumi, and they now are producing over 3 million litres of beer per year. They're doing very, very well for themselves these days. ways, and of course when you have that kind of tag of the first microbrewery in Japan, that is going to go some way towards helping your marketing in that country, of course. And it is cool to see that more and more Japanese breweries are actually starting to be found outside of Japan, because that's one thing I would always criticise the Japanese beer market for, is their distribution. And you'll see Casey and Eric talking about that in their reviews as well, that the Japanese distribution system of beer is not the best. You could really cannot find some of these beers other than things like, for example, when I was in Hokkaido with Michiko in the summer, there was a beer that was only available on the train that went through BA, and you wonder why. But enough about that. So just to list the other beers you can get from Echigo Beer, then they've got the Pilsner, the Blonde, the Koshikari Echigo Beer, the Stout, the Red Ale, and also the White Ale as well in their regular series. And they do produce one-off beers every so often. They've got quite an interesting method of introducing new beers actually. They used to start off and brew them on the small pilot system and then see if it was good and then put it up to the big system, but now they have a kind of team effort to actually produce different beers. So quite interesting actually in that regard. So yeah, so that's enough about the brewery just now. Let's actually get on to the tasting of this beer itself. So as I mentioned to you, this one is a 5.5% red ale, and it's apparently based on the American amber ale style. So should be quite an interesting one for us to try. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork again before we open up. There you can see Echigo Beer, so it doesn't say it's, where is the Echigo thing here? So there you can see Echigo Beer. I'm not quite sure exactly what it says on the top. Porumi, something like that. Oh, yeah, it just says Premium Red Ale. Of course, that's done for the Japanese pronunciation in the katakana, since it's a foreign word. But there you can see the nice goat there. It actually has a different cover on the back too. You can see the Japanese birds. I forget exactly what that bird is called, but it's quite famous in some of the old Japanese paintings and things like that. It's quite common that you'll see that on these beautiful old artworks that you get in Japan. But very nicely presented. As I said, 5.5% red ale. So let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting then. Yeah. So, oh, you can smell some of the nice fruity characters off that. It's definitely got a bit of an American hop presence to it. Smells really, really nice. And it's kind of pouring exactly as you would expect from an amber ale. So yeah, let's set the can back down just now. But as you can see, this beer is poured a really nice, it really does look particularly like an amber ale. It's got a really nice dark kind of coppery colour to it. I'm not sure how well you can see that. If I bring it closer to the light here, maybe you can see that a little bit better. It's got this lovely kind of coppery amber colour to it. There's some big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and quite a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of that head there. The head, incidentally, is a sort of creamy beige colour. If I put my fingers behind it, maybe you can see there is a degree of transparency to this beer, but overall it is actually quite clear. There's a little bit of opacity to it, but otherwise really, really clear looking beer, but looks exactly as you would expect a kind of red ale or an amber ale to look. So in terms of the aroma of this one, it really smells, it's very caramelly, as you would kind of expect from this beer style. A little bit toasted, I would say. There's a bit of biscuit in there, and you can get an almost slightly brown bready malt base, but there's a good aroma of American hops in this one. It's really nice. Yeah. Not so hoppy, I would say. More malty, as you would expect from this beer style. But it smells really nice. As I say, quite toasted caramel. Bit of bready character, maybe some biscuit in there as well. Maybe some kind of nutty aromas actually, but mainly it's leaning towards that toasted caramel. There's a bit of floral character from the hops, maybe a very slight earthy character as well. And some red fruity esters. Really does smell very nice, this beer. It's got a good aroma. You could smell this one and think it was a proper, American red ale, which is always good actually. A little bit of candied red fruit ester. It reminds me of the kind of Haribo Star Mix sweets that you can get. I can't remember if you get those in Japan actually, but it reminds me of that sort of red candied fruit flavour that you get from things like Haribo. But take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one. I would say it's kind of somewhere in between the English red ale and the American red ale. It's got a good bit of earthiness to it, which leans more towards the English side, but the toasted caramel and a little bit of that hoppy character does lean more towards the American side, the sort of candied character that it has. So take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck in, but we're going to try this beer now. So this one is the Echigo Beer Company's Red Ale. Let's get stuck into this guy. Kanpai. That's quite interesting. Now with this one, I'll say straight up, this is a beer that is not going to blow your mind in terms of the flavour. It's not going to really blow your head in terms of like hops or maltiness or anything like that. And this is something that I should always point out with Japanese beers. Casey and Eric and I kind of discussed it a little bit in the collaboration reviews we did. Japanese people, compared to Europeans and things, it's probably fair to say that they have a kind of mild palate. They're not so into very, very strong flavours. And this is why a lot of the beers you'll find in Japan are a bit more mild. You know, all of the elements that you expect from the traditional beer style are there, but the flavours are just a little bit kind of pushed back, if you like. All the flavours are there, and it's more about how these flavours blend together. And this red ale really, it more kind of captures that element of Japanese brewing. Yeah, definitely fair to say that with this one. There's a good bit of hoppy presence to it, but it's not too kind of attacking and dry as you can get with some of the American red ales. It's got a nice earthy feel to it, this one, and some floral character. It's probably fair to say that this particular red ale is somewhere between the old English style and the new American style, but the flavour, the kind of feel of it leans a bit more towards the American side, but the flavours are leaning more towards the English side, I would say. It's really quite light in its mouthfeel as well, actually. And of course, that's another thing you have to consider with Japanese beer. That really is simply down to the heat that you're going to get in Japan. It's a ridiculously hot country. A lot hotter than you'd expect. You know, 36 degrees in Osaka when I was there. I think 38 one day as well, actually. So very, very hot country. And this is the other thing. They want their beers to have a sort of light mouthfeel to them. Kind of nice, light and drinkable. And this one also kind of captures that. So in terms of the actual flavours that you're getting from this beer, so in the middle of your palate, there's a sort of an almost kind of browny, pale bready malt on this one. It goes right across the middle of the palate. On top of that, you can feel a bit of a thicker, kind of grainy character coming out. In the middle of your palate, there's a little bit of caramel sweetness. There's almost a little bit of a roasted, kind of grainy flavour coming out of this beer as well. Yeah, I'll stick with that. The sweetness comes out a little bit more as the flavour progresses, and you can feel that toasted grainy character that the beer has pushes its way out a bit later as well. So in the back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it becomes a little bit less dry, it smooths out a little bit, then you start to get more floral and grassy around the front curve of the tongue there. Just behind the front curve of the tongue, of course, you'll get that little oily bubble that I always talk about, and there's some nice kind of red fruity esters coming out of the beer in that part. But it's got a really nice flavour. It's actually very well blended together. But as I say, be aware when you try this beer, in comparison to the American red ales, this beer focuses more on how the flavours are blended together rather than being really punchy in one regard. And as I say, that really is just kind of engineered for the Japanese palate. Like I say, they're not so keen on very, very strong flavours. The Japanese palate really is more about how flavours blend together. And even if you try like IPAs and things like that in Japan, you'll probably always find that they tend to lean towards being a bit sweeter in the malt base and a little bit more juicy from the hops than some of aggressively bitter things that you'll come across in America. They've just got a different feel to them. But it's nice, this beer. I wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. I would love to try it on tap and just see how it comes across with a slightly thicker mouthfeel, because the mouthfeel on this one is very wet. You get a little bit, you know, the malt base in the middle of the palate feels very, very light. I think it would be interesting to see if the what it would be like if the malt base was just a little bit thicker. That, of course, could be down to the level that it's cooled at, but it's not cooled anything less than the other beers that I usually do. But it would be nice with a little bit of a thicker mouthfeel. The hoppy side of the beer has a little bit of bitterness in the back of the palate. As you come further forward, it smooths out. There's some fruity, juicy character in there. and some nice malty sweetness in the middle of the palate too. As I say, the malty side of things has a little bit of dryness as well from the toasty grain characters, but overall it's a very interesting beer. As I've said, it's very engineered towards the Japanese palate because it's about how the flavours blend together, so just be aware of that when you try this one. And if you are watching in America, you're more likely to find this beer in a bottle than in a can, but it's definitely worth trying. As I said, Echigo Beer are quite unique in the fact that they are Japan's first microbrewery. And this is probably why this beer is a bit more engineered towards the Japanese palate. But I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. Really nice beer, and it's quite interesting to try something like this for one of my milestone reviews. So here's to 900 more. Can't buy. But yeah, the Red Ale from Echigo Beer in Niigata Prefecture in Japan. I hope you guys have enjoyed this review. So until the next time, thank you for watching. Do check out all my other reviews on the channel as well, on my social media and things like that. Make sure you check out Casey and Eric's channel, as well as Koji's shop in Taishibashi, Maichi, Osaka. Thank you again for all your support over these last 900 videos, or 3.5 years, however you want to look at it. I'll catch you very soon with more beer reviews. I hope you've enjoyed this Japanese one, and if you're particularly interested in Japanese beers, you will see more appearing, probably sometime in January, I would think. So thank you again for watching. Until the next time, Slanger just now, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Echigo Red Ale, one of the Japanese kind of pioneering beers, if you like. Until the next time, Slanger just now.